You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much.
Develop your science and your army. Construct prestigious buildings and lead your civilization to victory. Seven Wonders Duel is a standalone game in the world of Seven Wonders, made especially for 2 players. Seven Wonder Duel offers a whole new system of card drafting, 3 victory conditions, scientific process, and an original military system, and 12 wonders to combine for activity and continually new games.
Welcome to Tabletop Arcanum. This is Justin.
And Mindy.
And today we will be looking at the 2-player game, Seven Wonders Duels, put by Repos Games. Obviously, this is a 2-player game. Ages 10 up, about 30 minutes to play. MSRP of $34.99, and designed by Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala. I probably butchered both of their names, and I apologize for that. This is a new way to draft cards in a Seven Wonders game. If you've played Seven Wonders, you'll understand the core concept of card drafting. But they also just kind of made it a little bit different, and a couple of, like Mindy just kind of said, different victory conditions and different kind of method of play. One other thing I should probably identify is, yes, Seven Wonders, the core game, does have a 2-player variant on it. So this is not that variant. This is its own game with it specifically designed to be a 2-player game. Let's talk about first impressions. Mindy, you go first.
First impressions, I really like this game. It's nice to play the duel with just 2 people. We've played Seven Wonders before, so it's nice to be like just 2-player because we don't have anybody else in the house. The one thing, first impression-wise, it sticks out a lot, same as Seven Wonders, but the cards are smaller, which I'm not sure if I like that as much or not. That would be my kind of one thing there, but otherwise, I think the layout is good. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space, so you can just on the dining room table play, just the 2-person, and it does have the nice same kind of drawings and everything that your regular Seven Wonders does, so I think that's really nice on the actual smaller portion of it. I also like that it's a box. It all compact in there. Kind of a little bit of different options going on within the box as well. So, how about for you, Justin?
So first impressions when I got this game was I really wanted it to be different from Seven Wonders, and I really wanted it to take what could have been an interesting 2-player version in Seven Wonders and actually improve upon that idea. And it does that in a way I didn't expect. I like the portability on this game because of the mini cards and the fact that everything is on the smaller scale. It does allow for you to travel with it a lot easier than most games. I've actually traveled with this before. The Seven Wonders art has always been eye-catching and fantastic, and they kept it going with the dual version, so no complaints there. That's just my first take on it. So the biggest thing that I need to kind of put out elephant in the room is the 2-player Seven Wonders core version variant is 2 players with a 3rd city that's kind of co-developed between the 2 players.
So in Seven Wonders, the actual game, when you play with your 2-player version, you guys are playing back and forth as to who's controlling that 3rd city. And that's really hard because all of a sudden you're going through and you're realizing maybe that 3rd city is going to win. And that's where it gets a little tricky.
Which is not what happens in Duel. The biggest change, honestly, is that Duel, if you're buying resources from your quote-unquote neighbor, it's just paid to a bank, and your neighbor is actually kind of setting the price,
value.
The price, because if they actually have that resource, that you have to pay more without going to game mechanics. It's a nice little way of, if you need what they have, it's going to cost you. But if they don't have what you need, then it's relatively reasonable still.
Right. It's your supply and demand for the bank for those 2 cities, basically.
It's an open hand drafting, so the cards are actually laid out on the table, either face up, face down, and they kind of overlay each other, and once a card is uncovered, it can flip face up, and that is a valid choice. And you kind of take turns back and forth drafting this pyramid. And each age, of course, flips how that setup looks a little bit. it has a lot of cool first impressions, and one of my best first impressions of Seven Wonders Duels is the fact that you can co-own Seven Wonders Duels and the Seven Wonders core game, and they play differently enough that you don't feel like it's a redundant, watered-down version. Right. They feel like they're two different games. So what did Seven Wonders Duel do well for you?
So one, I definitely think the drafting does really well. It's, you lays all the cards out there and you're going back and forth. So you can actually see those later cards, not all of them, but you can see some of them and be like, okay, maybe I want to kind of work towards that. But it also, a little bit of strategy in that point of like, how do I not get this available for my for the other person to go ahead and take before I want to take it, or like how do I kind of make them take the card before it so I can get the card I want. So I think it does that really well. It opens up that like, hey, I can see half the cards but not all of them, so it gives you options. I think it does really well on your winning mechanic. With the duels, you've got different ways that you can win flat out. So, military is one way, or science. So certain things that you can do that will just kind of make you win the game. It's a little bit of strategy on your part to, can I do this? Is my opponent paying attention to my military and noticing that I'm pushing them too far out of the way? So I think those are really good mechanics for a duel game that isn't set up the same way in the regular Seven Wonders. So I think for two people, that's a really good strategy. I think the levels are really good too. I think when you're going from like your 3 different levels, the layout's different for those two, so that gives you options. And then your guilds are really good. A lot of the guilds are back and forth, whoever's got more, so I think that's really nice. I also think they did really well with the actual wonders. With having 4 wonders that you can pick, 7 of them can be done per game. You kind of have to play that strategy of, can I get all my wonders done? Should I get all my wonders done or not? So I think that's all really good with the actual duel portion of it. So Justin, what do you think it did well?
One of the best features of Seven Wonders Duels is it's a game that you have 3 paths to victory, either by points, either by military victory, or by that science victory that you mentioned. And in a 2-player back and forth game, you're balancing all 3 while trying to sneak one of them through. Whether you're trying to collect the most points and defending the other 2 fronts. I've had many, many games where I would approach the game with one strategy, but then depending on the cards that were available to me, I would have to pivot and change to a military strategy. Like, well, I guess I'm getting military cards. I should probably just push that then, because I could potentially win this way. You're not necessarily pigeonholed into one defined strategy. You can, but if the wrong cards pop up, then that strategy is going to fail. You have to be adaptive, and I think that's one of the better things about it is you have to pay attention to all those factors, but there's enough randomness that as long as both players are paying attention, it's going to be a balanced and a hard-fought game. While you may have one avenue open to you, your opponent may have a different avenue open to them based on just how the drafting. So I like it a lot for those aspects. I think it captures the feel of Seven Wonders while still it doesn't do well, and that's a very strong piece for it.
To say, there's one other thing that I really like about it, and it's just a little thing because in Seven Wonders, when you can build upon other cards, I think the mini cards do really well of just doing a picture and making it easy to see that build upon section. I feel like sometimes with the regular Seven Wonders, that word or whatever it was, and you forget to look at that, where like the mini cards give you those little pictures of like, oh, that's really easy to tell, like I can build this one for free. I think that's something else they did really well with the duel game. So what do you think it could do better?
Opportunities with Seven Wonders Duels boils down into a couple factors. The science path is difficult because there are 7 different symbols in the game. If you collect 6 unique ones, you win. However, one of them is on a token that you may or may not even have access to. And then of the other 6 that are on cards, a couple copies of each symbol out there, potentially, because there are some cards, at the start of the game, 3 cards from each age are put back in the box, you don't see them. So there's a little variance there. And if the wrong science cards get put in that box at the start, you could be going, if you're trying to get a science victory, you may not even be physically possible to do it. It's a nitpicky thing, but since it's a condition to win, I feel there should have been a little bit easier way or some way to control that a little bit better. Military's not that tough. Points are points. But science, like, it either is going to work or you're going to have a colossal failure. Now, the other aspect to the science cards, on the green, which are the green cards in the game, is if you get two of the same symbol, you get one of progress tokens, which have varying different power levels, and sometimes they're points, sometimes they're abilities or discounts for future cards. And I love those. I love the progress tokens as they are. It's just the science icons is the one thing I was like, I just wish there was another, maybe one more copy of each one out there. Or a way to say, I can use this one, this card is a wild version of one of them. Something of that nature. The only other major thing I would actually say about this game in the opportunity side is I still have the same semi-issue with expansions that I do with the regular Seven Wonders. They're interesting, they're fun, but I feel like they tilt the game in such a way where something never feels quite right when play with the expansion. Some game balance just seems slightly off. When we play with Pantheon, we always kind of go back to, let's just play with the core game.
Right.
And when we play Seven Wonders, we always kind of feel like,
let's just go back to the core.
Every time we branch out into the expansions, it's like, well, that was neat for a game or two, and then we just go back to playing core-only game.
Yeah.
So I feel the expansions are something that is an opportunity on the game line, not necessarily the game itself, but just in general. Like,
one of the things like I feel like could be better with the duels is just the money portion of it too. I don't feel like you end up with enough money to be able to buy resources or do things that you need to do. And sometimes you end up with too much money. But a lot of times it's like not quite enough. So I think that's just a way to like either gain more money other than having to sell off cards or something like that. So I think that's one of my other areas where I think it could do a little bit better. I don't quite know how, but I think there are times when you're like, I just need money and I really want that card, but I can't buy it or I can't get it, or I need this resource and my neighbor has that and I need to spend all this extra money to pay for it. So I think the money portion of it is where it comes to quite a bit of like needing a little bit more balance in there or something. I think the rest of it does really well. I'm trying to... Every once in a while I feel like the actual wonders... Sometimes I play and I forget about building the wonders. So I think that's kind of... I don't know if I feel like it's so much in the forefront of having to do. Because you can get points other ways, you can get stuff other ways, so you don't necessarily have to do the wonders, but they do give you other things, so I guess it just depends on kind of what wonders you have. I think those are my biggest ones on what could be a little bit better on the Seven Wonders Duel.
So $34.99 is the MSRP for Seven Wonders Duel. How do you feel that fits with this game?
I mean, after having played it and, played it quite a bit and stuff like that, I would pay that price for it. I think it's a good game. I think it's a well-balanced game for the main board game and everything. So I think that is a good price for it. It's not too high for a two-person game. It's not too low. Obviously, I'll always take a deal, but but I think for the main portion of it and the way that it's balanced and the way that it plays as a two-person game is really good for that price. And the art is really good. How do you feel about that?
I personally feel it's a little overpriced at $34.99. Game quality, game component quality, everything is there. It's top notch. You're not getting a game that doesn't have that value. My real concern is there are plenty of two-player games that sit between that $20 and $30 range. And if this sat in that $25 to $30 range, maybe the higher end of that range, I think it would be a little bit easier sell, because remember, we're only playing a two-player game. So $35 for two players, Seven Wonders, the core game, is only $10 more at $44.99 and can play up to 7 players. And that's where I feel like I would like to have seen a little bit more reduction on the two-player version to make the 7-player full game feel more valuable.
Okay. I could see that. And especially with the Seven Wonders having a two-person variant, and get your money worth out of that.
Right.
But
I wouldn't recommend this 2-player variant, but you can play
Right.
7 Wonders with 2 players. So for $10 more, if you know you're going to play with more than 2 players at some point, you may be more inclined to just pick up the full game then.
It's true. If you know you're going to play with just 2 people most of the time, I definitely recommend doing the duels. I think it just works so much better than the 7 Wonders with the variants.
I'll never play the 2-player version of 7 Wonders ever again.
No.
Unless, like, I only have access to that and my duels is loaned out, stolen, or was lit on fire.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be some extreme, like, I cannot play duels. I actually would probably even go on a limb and play, say, let's just play something else.
It's true.
I'll play, like, I don't like that variant. It was good at the time when it came out because it was something.
Right.
But as soon as duels came out and we played it, it was the never again look back version.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, who would you recommend this for?
I definitely would recommend this for like couples and stuff like that would be into board games together, like we are, and not overly thought process board games, I guess. Not a lot of intense strategy in them, or want to play that. Also, even teenagers, or, don't know if I would go maybe younger than teenagers, just because of some of the more detailed stuff, like the buying and that of resources. Otherwise, the cards would be fine for younger people to kind of understand, but I think that's where the biggest thing is, like, how do we go about buying this again and stuff like that. So I definitely think teenagers or older, and especially if somebody who just wants a small game that they can travel with, you're going on vacation, just the 2 of you, people that like board games that don't have tons of strategy, and it's just 2 people, you don't have a family of 5 or something like that. So I think that's who I would recommend it for. How about you?
Very much the same. I would keep it to your couple gamers, your mixed couple gamers, I would also say. Like, if someone who is into a little bit more deeper strategy games, someone who's not, and is a little bit more lighter fare gamer, 7 Wonders Duels hits a very nice middle ground between those 2 compromises. It may be a little bit stretched out of the box for the gamer who isn't used to a lot of modern board gaming, but it isn't so overly simplified that a designer board game fan won't have fun with this either. Now, I would say yes, this is great for traveling. I would say if you like to travel and bring games along with you, this is excellent. If you hotel and if you're doing conventions and want a game to kind of bust out while waiting in a hall, because that's just what you're doing, waiting for food, waiting for the next thing. This is great. Something, if you wanted to, I would bust this. I've busted this out while doing like a continental breakfast in a hotel. Like, eating breakfast, chilling out, and then just playing this game. Like, it's not a huge footprint, so it does well for that. But because they're all little mini cards, any outside or environment where wind is a factor, I would be very cautious. Let's turn on head. I would not recommend this if you almost never play 2-player games. I think that's the easy one to get out of the way. Like, if you play with a group and you consistently play with a group of gamers, just get 7 Wonders. If you don't care about the travel aspect, or you don't really ever get that 1 to 2-player aspect, then it's a pass. If you don't like drafting games, and if you have a problem with not being able to pull off the perfect strategy and not being able to be flexible in what you can do on your next turn, because there's several kind of, I would say, a little bit like feel bad moments potentially in 7 Wonders Duels, of like, with the way the wonders work, you can chain a wonder and take an additional turn. So like, you can look at it and go, okay, we'll go back and forth, so they'll take this one, I'll take this one, then they should take either that or that. And if you're trying to plot out your turns too far in advance, and your plan could be pulled out from underneath you depending on bonus turns given by a wonder build.
It's very true, and if you so happen to be the person that screws somebody else's plans, it's just that one person. You're not screwing, you know.
There's no choice.
There's no choice. You don't have 6 other people that are there or anything like that. So I can definitely see where if somebody doesn't really like that aspect, they probably don't want to play this.
So that's the big pieces of Seven Wonders Duels. Definitely would recommend the game. It's actually one of my go-to favorites for just a night in with Mindy.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. It's small, it's fast, it's light. We both enjoy it.
And I'm not a big gaming person, and Justin is, so it's a kind of nice medium between the two of us. It works really well with us.
So with that said, this has been Tabletop Arcanum. I'm your host, Justin.
And Mindy.
We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're also on YouTube and Twitch, as well as you can always reach out to us at tabletop.arcanum@gmail.com. That being said, thank you for listening, and happy gaming.
Happy gaming!
You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, hosted by Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, and featuring the original music by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. As always, thanks for listening.